Welcome everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about a very exciting and interesting cryptic tweet that has come out from the most credible Nintendo leaker of all time, and that is Pyoro. On Twitter, he has posted this image of a Nintendo Entertainment System cartridge, but not just any cartridge, but the cartridges that were used for the original Nintendo World Championships back in 1990. And what's special about these cartridges is that they have switches on them for different variations of the games that were played for the competition, those games being the original Super Mario Bros., Tetris, and Rad Racer. So then, what is Pyoro hinting at here? Many people were thinking it has to do with Switch 2, given the focus on switches. But others are thinking it has to do with the return of the Nintendo World Championships, given that it's a Nintendo World Championships cartridge. So what is Pyoro actually hinting at here? Well, that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So I definitely 100% want this to be Switch 2 related. That's what my confirmation bias is leading me towards. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I am biased here. But let me explain why I think it makes a lot of sense that this is somehow a hint towards Switch 2. Firstly, just a few days ago, Pyoro actually acknowledged Switch 2. Pyoro has never talked about Switch 2, but just a few days ago they did. They responded to this story about a Switch 2 report that was leaking some details on Switch 2 specs, and they said that they had heard some internal conversations that line up with this, but that their main source had yet to verify it all. But now a few days later we see this. Now for even more fuller context, Pyoro in general is known for putting out information, oftentimes in a very cryptic way, hinting at an official Nintendo announcement about to happen within a few days. And usually when they put out a tweet on a Thursday, or towards the end of the week, we're going to get Nintendo news at the beginning of the next week. And Nintendo's next investors meeting is early next week, May 7th. But if you account for a Japan time, on May 6th, some of us may be hearing about that investors meeting already. And there has been a lot of speculation that with Nintendo's next investors meeting, we will get official word from Nintendo about the Switch 2. Not necessarily like a big trailer, but just some sort of official acknowledgement of the console and giving us some level of optimism that it could be coming out by the end of the fiscal year, which would be by the end of March 2025. And this makes sense because typically, when we're entering a fiscal year, in that first investors meeting, if we are to be getting a next generation console within that time frame, they would address this console to some extent in that first fiscal meeting. So timing wise, this makes a lot of sense for Pyoro to be teasing something Switch 2 related, and we have all these switches on this cartridge. It feels like that Pyoro had to at least have been aware that many people were going to be jumping to this conclusion. But does that mean that's exactly what Pyoro was hinting at here? Well, it could be a little bit of a fake out. It could be him having a little bit of fun with the Switch 2 craziness, just putting out something with switches. But it could also just be something more obvious. It could just be that he's hinting at an announcement for the next Nintendo World Championships. Although the last one we've gotten was back in 2017. It's not something that happens that often. So should we expect another? Well, it's hard to say, but I do think it's worth noting that if this is indeed a transition year where Nintendo's going to be a bit slow because they're preparing for their next generation launch early next year, then we may not have that many games, and Nintendo may try to make up for this with extra little events, including a new Nintendo World Championships. It's reasonable. I think there could be something to this idea. Even the Nintendo World Championships of 2015 was actually announced in May. So there's a little bit of history here of something like this being announced around this time. Now, something else Pyoro tends to do is that he tends to like things when he puts out a cryptic message to sort of steer us in the right direction for what he may be hinting at. This has been done many times in the past when having to do with different Nintendo Direct announcements he's been alluding to. And this time, he's liked one thing relating to his post of today. And that's where Pokénext replied to his post and said, "Oh shit, Switch 3 and Switch 4 confirmed," and there's an image of the Switch numbers zoomed in from the cartridge. This could simply be acknowledging the facetious nature of this message somehow being related to Switch 2, and in reality it's not at all. Or it could be him saying, yep, it's related to new Switch consoles. Could be. So then what is this actually? Does it have to do with the Nintendo World Championships? Does it have to do with Switch 2? Could it be about something else? Well, given that there's multiple Switches on here, could it be simply a reference to another Switch revision being about to be announced? That's another possibility. Maybe it's an even more subtle reference to just an announcement on another game, maybe having to do with some sort of version of Super Mario Bros. Or Tetris or Rad Racer, the games included in this original cartridge. Could be. Could it be something having to do with Nintendo Switch Online? That's a possibility, but typically when he makes references to NSO announcements, they happen immediately afterwards. So if we don't learn something today about an NSO announcement relating to the Nintendo World Championships, I would say this is unlikely. I do think it's worth noting that a lot of the people that have been talking about Switch 2, that are supposedly insiders on this, have been retweeting this post. They've been interacting with it more. Necrofelipe, Brazil, and even someone who's considered to be on the level of Pyoro or close to them, Midori, has interacted with this tweet. So could it be that some people are in the know and they're sort of hinting at, hey, we think this is actually about Switch 2, or we know this is about Switch 2, hint hint, something's about to happen soon. I desperately want to believe that, but I'm also trying to temper my expectations here. I do feel that Nintendo should put out some significant news soon. I understand the expectation is that we should get a direct in June, because usually that's when we get directs, but we have not gotten a general direct this year. We just got a partner showcase, and I do kind of feel like the Nintendo news has been pretty dry. Even when you consider the kinds of games that have been coming out this year that are published by Nintendo, nothing's done that well on Metacritic. Endless Ocean has had subpar reviews. There hasn't been that much to excite the Nintendo fanbase this year. And while we could just go through more of a dry spell and wait until June for some more Nintendo games that will likely be announced to fill up the second half of the year, it does kind of feel like we need something of substance to carry us over until that point. An announcement of Switch 2 would do that. An announcement for Nintendo World Championships, for some people, would be an interesting talking point, but it would be fairly minimal by comparison. Now, regardless of what this announcement may end up being, I do think there's a pretty solid chance we're going to have some kind of a trailer. Why? Because typically when Pyoro puts out hints like this, it amounts to some kind of a trailer, some sort of official media put together by Nintendo that's used to market whatever they have being announced. With the Mario Anniversary stuff, there was a little bit of a trailer. With the Partner Direct, well, it was a Partner Direct. Or even smaller things like NSO announcements have trailers. So maybe we're just going to get a trailer that's announcing the games for Nintendo World Championships that will be held later this year. Or maybe it'll be a trailer for that original cartridge and that will be available on Switch Online in some way. Or it's a trailer for Switch 2, which would be kind of insane because currently our expectations are that we'll just get like a soft announcement of the console, like just a mention on social media or something in a press release statement, not something as big as a trailer. And if we are to get a big trailer next week, then does that suggest that the console's coming out sooner than later? Feels like wishful thinking. So obviously it's hard to say with certainty what this is going to be, but it does look like we're about to get some sort of Nintendo news really soon, according to the hint from Pyoro. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.